of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Tomorrow, Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Guyanese
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African supping in Ghana? Why a man and supping woman? No, Gildarie, you deal with that. You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Welcome to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon show. We are now into the 14th month of this program, and thanks for patronizing us. Thanks for enjoying with us. Wherever you are, welcome to the program. Wherever you are, a pleasant good evening to you, good night or good morning. Hope you are doing well, and hope you stick with us as we go into the future with this program. We have a slight variation in our Friday night call-in program. We're gonna interview our guests for half an hour, and maybe the questions will go beyond half an hour, but we hope to conclude the interview at 9, and we take an hour of calls. Our guest this evening is no stranger to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon show. He has appeared on this program more than 100 times, so I guess you know who we're talking about. Our guest is my co-host, and one of Guyana's most accomplished journalists, Leonard Gildarie. Gildarie wants to talk, and we will talk about journalism, because together with Neil Marks and maybe one or two others, he has been one of the longest serving journalists in Guyana. And he has been here the past 14 months probing the minds of our guests and asking our guests to expatiate on subject matters that interest them and the nation. But he also has a contribution to make in one area of which he has excelled, journalism. Now, while he was in New York preparing to get married in New York, we had one of our top journalists in the studio, Neil Marks. And I did say in that program, and I did tell him that I mentioned in the program that I think he and Neil Marks have done well in the area of journalism. I think there are two professions that are generally regarded as very, very important to the world. That is medicine, because you save lives and you tend to people and reduce their pain, etc. And teaching. Teachers bring knowledge to people, and knowledge is the only avenue of liberation. If you are held captive and you're not in possession of knowledge, then you're going to remain a captive, because you can use the knowledge you gain and manipulate your captive, your captor. So the two professions are very sacred to the world, medicine and teaching. And then there's the third, journalism. Journalism brings to the world the things, the events, the developments, the transactions, the occurrences that take place in the world. It probes the world. It probes the multidimensional faces of the world and bring you those dimensions. Journalists risk their lives to bring to you the sufferings of refugees, the sufferings of war victims. So the profession of journalism, never mind the intrusion of social media, what social media does, it also lends an avenue, also provides an avenue for journalists to ply their trade. Now, you don't have to be educated at the university in the field of journalism not to excel in it. There are people who have spent a long time in journalism, and that vast experience that they have accumulated make them special in that area. So this evening, Leonard Gildarie, with more than 20 years experience of journalism in Guyana and in the Caribbean, where he served the nation of St. Martin's in the Caribbean, he will explore the pitfalls, the shortcomings, and also the positives of Guyanese journalism. I do believe that one of the other outstrips the other. And in that sense, I think the shortcomings of journalism outstrip the positive of it. The past, I would say, 30 years. The past 60 years, journalism was outstanding in Guyana in the form of Wiki Singh, Rick Mentis, Ricardo Smith, Janet Jagan, Clinton Collymore, Moses Nagamutu. Those were excellent times for journalism. Gildarie has his opinions, his analyses, and his other perspectives on journalism. And for a guy who worked so long in that area, it will be interesting to see how he answers the questions of what he has been, where he has been in the area of journalism. So our guest this evening is the man who pursues the news for you, but this evening he will make the news. So we don't need to go through the protocol of handshake or what have you, but maybe we could do a little bit of a comical moment and say welcome to the program.
Namaste.
Gildarie. Now, I don't know if you looked at the 1 hour interview we had with Neil Marks, in which he spoke about his experiences. What has been your experience in St. Martin's, but you have spent more time in Guyana? So let's start with St. Martin and then immediately go into Guyana.
Thank you very much, Zira, and good night, folks, wherever you are. It's a strange position to be on the other side. Normally, I'm sitting where Freddie is sitting. St. Martin will always hold a very special place in my heart. Two of my children are born there. My eldest son is in Holland right now studying. He's a Dutch citizen. My youngest son, if he so chooses, he could become the Dutch citizen too. I think that option is open to him. St. Martin was also a very troubled time at the end for me. I was deported, I was arrested because of the work that I did there. When that happened around the 2006-2005 time, I ended up before the court jail. So let me tell you what happened. We were sent to work for the newspaper there, the Today newspaper. There were two major newspapers, the Herald, Daily Herald, and it was the Today newspaper. And the Today newspaper was started up, and so they wanted some Guyanese folks because one of the owners of that newspaper was a Guyanese businessman. I think the folks who involved with cricket would know the name Najico Insurance. Is the majority shares are owned by a Guyanese man by the name of Imran Maksud, one of the richest Guyanese in the Caribbean. And he was more, he says, let's get Guyanese people to fill the newspaper. So I was one of them. I wanted a break. It was around 2000, and so they sent for me, and I went across there. I had spent a year at Starbuck News. I was a crime reporter there, and I said I wanted a break out of the country. It wasn't very easy then, you look at the opportunities. So I went there, and being the kind of person that I am, I always had an inquiry in mind. I eventually went off, and I was given monies to start my own weekly newspaper, The National it was called. And Freddie Kissoon, it went very well. I used to distribute the newspaper. I used to write for the newspaper. I used to jump in my car and in the night pick it up from the printer. I used to sell ads. I used to help edit it and help oversee the layout. I had a technical person. As a matter of fact, the technical person who was laying out happened to be the daughter of a minister, Garrido Lowe, a former minister within the APNU, and she was over there too. Fast forward, I happened to have done a story there that spoke about trafficking in person. The Indian nationals had a big shopping center, and one day I went into the shop, and the guy came in, his eyes were black at the bottom, and he says, I need some help. I know who you are. I said, what's the problem? And he says, in the night, they lock us up there, and they've taken away our passports. I said, what? So I didn't know at that point in time that there was a big racket running with regards to working permits and so on. If you want to get there, $700, $1,000 you get one. So these guys were being controlled, and the immigration folks. Fast forward, I did a story breaking that thing there, and all hell broke loose. I was warned by the business people that I should not have gone, that could I cool down a little. I did a second story. The governor of the island, a few months, because this spoke of things to come, he was passing, and I was doing something in front of the apartment I was living in, and he said, you're working hard? I said, yes, I'm trying to clean the island. He says, I'm also doing a lot for you, I'm saving you a lot. And I later reviewed that it was like a threat, because the governor of the island is the Queen's representative. Holland is where the Queen is for St. Martin, and all that is part of the Netherlands Antilles back at that point in time. Any case, every week I used to go in to the police station to interview the commissioner of police, what is happening, how are you guys progressing. And I went in one day, and a guy, immigration officer says, you Mr. Gildarie? I said, yes. Come, I need to talk to you. When I go in, snap a handcuff onto my hands. And he says, your working paper was not approved and you're illegal on the island. I said, but I've been working and my papers are in like everybody else. He says, as long as you don't have the working papers, it hasn't been issued to you, you're illegal on the island. So the matter ended up, no, I'm jumping ahead. I sat down like about 2 hours in that lockup, very, very cold. And I said, what the hell am I doing? My wife is pregnant. And I couldn't take it. I'd never been locked up in my life. And I said I couldn't take it. And I just called her and I said, you know what? If these guys are thinking, let them fight the action. I'm coming off the island. I can't stay in this lockup. I've never been built like that. And so they put me on a plane and they sent me home. Freddie Kissoon, I got to write a book about the story. I stayed 6 months in Guyana. My wife is belly getting bigger, and she said, you know, do I come back? I said, no, I'm going to come back. I was so desperate, I got a friend's visa. I flew to Antigua. I spent a night there, went to Guadeloupe as a businessman. I went as a businessman. They had all my registration. So I could talk the story, because many Guyanese would have gone to places and were desperate. In my time, I was young.
But there's a missing link before you go on.
Right.
If a journalist could be treated like that,
well, there's even a bigger story
they
because
need to be,
right. So I want to
a
tell
lawyer should have gone to
right.
the press association.
Well, no, but I had a partner there, but because I think I panicked because I was in that lockup and I couldn't take it anymore. And the guy who had sent for us again, the rich businessman, he booked my ticket. In any case, going back 6 months later, I got a friend's visa, and I went back. I landed in Antigua and then flew from there to Guadeloupe. As soon as I landed in Guadeloupe, so the immigration hold on to me. They've never seen a Guyanese flying from Antigua to Guadeloupe and going back to St. Martin. So for them, that was strange. I had to be up to something. So Freddie Kissoon, I panicked. I was thinking about my wife. I was thinking about my family that I had there, my mom and my dad, and so was there. And I behaved bad because the plane is about to leave. And I said, we're going to have a lawsuit on our hands. And I'm looking at the plane and they're looking at me and I'm shouting in the airport, and these two big burly immigration guys says, no, something is wrong with your situation. In any case, they looked at me and they said, okay. And so the plane closed the door and then the plane opened the door and I went on to there. When I landed in St. Martin, my wife picked me up from the front side and took me over to the north side of St. Martin. And I did not work in the newspaper. I went working at a private company as a manager for the car rental. We applied there now as a manager for the company, the general manager, and they refused the work permit again. And we appealed it. So one day I'm sitting in the yard. I had staffers I was looking after in charge of, and the police came again and arrested me. And they arrested me. Now, you got to remember, people go work on the island, apply for the work permit and get it. So they come and arrest me and says, because you have applied for managers, and anybody who applied for managers work permit, don't be refused. It is automatically given to them. You're a manager, you're executive. So everybody wanted to know what happened. When I went there, they put me in jail for 16 days. I had long beard and everything, and this thing was terrible. I was sitting there, some people were crying in the jail.
But anyway, well, it looks you were targeted.
But we went before the court. So just very quickly, let me fast forward. I went before the court. 3 judges. Bob Witt for the Caribbean Court was one of them. I think you know Judge Bob Witt, and 2 others. And I won the case, but they said you have to come off the island. They want to charge me for entering the island illegally. The judge says they throw the matter, and the judge says, but you still have to be off while you're fighting. Very quickly, my kid went with me to the airport with my wife. He started crying. She was still pregnant. I didn't see my second kid being born. They escorted me. And while I was going, the immigration officer said, you believe you could F with the system? When I came back to Guyana, that the Dutch government was paying attention. Why would you target a journalist? The entire government fell. They arrested the commissioner of police, the Commission of Labor, which is our equivalent of Minister of Labor, and about 5 big ranking officials, and some of them went to jail because they did an investigation. The chief immigration officer was arrested with money laundering and a whole bunch of stuff because they were selling these work permits. It all stemmed from my case. The government changed. The new leader of government called me, could you come back to St. Martin? By the time then, Glenn Lallet, Kaiser News, called me to go work. I wanted to get back into journalism. And that in 2007, I entered to start working at Kaiser News.
Okay.
But just one other thing, Freddie, sorry about that. The judge, Bob Witt, in that court says, I couldn't understand it. He said that in open court. He says, I couldn't understand it. I don't understand how this case came about. But he says, you wanted to test the system, right? And I said, yes. I was young and cocky, but I really wanted to be with my family. I just wanted to stay that. I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed of what.
Okay, well let's go over to the journalistic side of your predicament. This guy that you say is one of the richest men in the Caribbean, and who invited you. Masood is his name?
Imran Masood. He's well known in the Caribbean.
But why didn't he?
He couldn't because
get some lawyers in the case, file injunction.
Because of how St. Martin is small island politics, he's a businessman at the end of the day.
So he didn't want to risk that.
He couldn't, and I would not have allowed him to. There was too much at stake. He could have lost the entire thing because it's small island politics. These guys could become.
But it's a colony. It's a colony of a country that lectures to third world people around the world. These European countries lecture to us on what is democracy, and when you look at what they do, you wonder if they have any moral right to lecture the third world on democracy. But let's talk. Look, you've gone from Kaicho News. You've gone. You're still in journalism. You're doing journalism right here. We do research for these programs 3 times a week, and you're practicing journalism right here now. So you've gone from Kaicho's world. I knew you from Kaicho. I think we were together at Kaicho for almost 15 years. We work on stories together at Kaicho News. And one of the hallmarks of modern journalism in Guyana, and that is why I thought when we started this program that you should never be out of journalism. Something happened in February 2017, and it had so much consequences for understanding power, political parties, and the world of political intrigue. In 2016, in December, Raphael Trotman sought the leadership of the AFC and won it. At that time, the AFC was in power. And in February, he held his first press conference as leader of the AFC. And he said at that press conference, and I couldn't believe when I was listening to it, this should be all over the Caribbean. He said, I was not appointed a minister when the AFC, APNU won the elections. AFC did not appoint me a minister. It did not appoint Dominic Gaskin as a minister either, and the husband of one of the founders of the AFC Shield holder. He said it was through the generosity of the president, David Granger, that the 3 of them were called in and given ministerial portfolios. There and then you thought that the government would fall. That was so cataclysmic a revelation. And no news media picked that up. I wrote a column on it because I thought there should be hundreds of columns on that. Nobody picked it up except you. And I thought that showed the difference in your quality with other journalists. Nowhere in the world, a founder of a party that got into power would confess to the nation that his colleagues ousted him from power when they won election, and is another party in the coalition that had to give him a minister job. And I thought that showed your love for journalism. But unfortunately, you left Kaicho. Working at Kaicho for many of the journalists I know was quite an unpleasant journey. You're free from the burden of Kaicho now. Would you like to tell the thousands of our viewers your experience in Kaicho? I know you'll be diplomatic. You're not as loud-mouthed and bat straight as I do. But still bat and let our viewers hear. Let our viewers see you bat in.
I never applied to Kaicho News. When Glenlyle, I spoke to Glenlyle, I think around 2007. Something happened, somebody drowned or something, and I don't know whether I called him or he called me. And he says, "What the hell are you doing home? Why don't you come work?" And I thought about it. I said, why would I want to get into, after that traumatic experience in St. Martin, I was thinking of heading in a different direction. And so I ended up there. Look, I thought around my experience with Glenn Lal. Let's talk about Glenn Lal. There's the elephant in the room. At that point in time, I admired him because when nobody wanted to go after those stories, Glenn Lal give you those freedom and give you the rein and says, look, you go after it. I'm going to deal with that. And he was around the 2009 area after I would have been with him. I think his focus started on corruption. Between 2009 2015, I really enjoyed myself there. When I say enjoyed, because I was allowed to write, I was pushing myself, I was doing what I really loved. In fact, around 2011, I started building my home. And Nigel Mackenzie was one of the editors, said to me, why don't you do something on a Sunday, write a little story or something. And I ended up with the first column that I write. I'm telling you what are some of the freedoms I got on the Glenn Lal and Kaiser News. And the newspaper was great because it was hitting on both the opposition and the government of the time. And I could tell you the question would always be coming up whether Glenn Lal is anti-PPP or anti-AFC or whatever it is. I think I was allowed there to write the way that I feel without anybody telling me how to write. He would not have dared to do that. I was not that kind of person, but he could not have come and tell me that, and I would not have allowed him. And I was allowed to write. I became probably one of the youngest columnists in the country from writing things that I know in my head. In fact, I was writing about building houses, and I was building my house. I talk about the experience, and very quickly I managed about 100 articles in that, and then I moved on to write about any other thing except housing, because after I stopped that, Nigel Mackenzie said continue, so I wrote about everything. Freddie Kissoon, Glenn Lal, everybody I wrote about, and I give my opinion. So people were reading it because I met people. Something happened around 2015, 2016 with the oil, and Glenn, fast forward, Glenn took a decision to go after the oil, and I tell you, I continued that, but there was a lot of pressure there because Glenn believed in his heart, and there's some things that I would say that I agree with him, but I believe, and I'm going to say it publicly now, a newspaper has to serve its purpose. And I believe that is given to people the news without you having to force the direction of the news on the people. You should not force them. You put the facts laid out on the table and let the people draw the conclusions. And I think that was my disagreement with that newspaper, how it think. But the greatest part of my life would have been with Kaiser News. I was the chief reporter when I left 2-3 years back. I was a columnist. I was an editor, and I was also holding the fort of the radio talk show hosts. The 2020 elections will really push me to the next level I didn't think that I had a voice for radio, and I was pushed to be there. And after I went up to the radio station, and knowing that the radio station wasn't doing anything in election day, I sat down there, dropped my bag. I called you, I called everybody, and I said, let's do coverage for elections day. And we know what transpired.
Well, let's go back. You are being interviewed by someone who met you at Kaiser, who befriended you at Kaiser, and who worked at Kaiser. Norman Brown, PNC extremist in London, said to me when he interviewed me after I left Kaiser, but you're now criticizing Glenn Lal because you have parted. And I think the question was out of context and was arid, because I couldn't criticize Glenn Lal when I was writing for the people, and I accept that. But I wanted to write. I wanted to educate people. I wanted people to know what was going on. And for me, that was more important than standing up to Glenn Lal. I think you can say that's a moral dilemma. I think one can accuse me of being in a moral dilemma. If you have a set of principles, then you should stick by your principles. But you and I worked at Kaiser News, and we enjoyed at Kaicho News despite some of the most bizarre behavior I have seen in a newspaper. For example, Glenn Lal was the publisher of the newspaper, and you and I saw how without any journalistic experience, he would intrude in the paper and tell people who are vastly more educated than him. I'll give you an example. We had a guy who came there to work, and you know him well, Myrtlan Halley, who came with an LLB degree to work at Kaicho News. She's now with the Ministry of Education. And at that time, the city council was in the news, and the mess in Georgetown. And that guy wrote a good story and presented it. And Glenn Lal, without any knowledge of journalism, without any claim to education, just told that young man, this is not journalism, man. Me no wonder. And days after, that guy left the job. Now, I think people like you, Adam Harris, Dale Andrews, Michael Jordan, myself, brought that paper to where it is. I can understand you saying that is how you felt between 2009 and 2015. But there were a lot of things you stomach in that newspaper that I am sure do not go on in other newspapers. I mean, you had a semi-literate guy without any experience in journalism, and he would tell the journalists what is news. And I know your job. I know I ignore that, which I shouldn't. You ignore that, and we went about doing our work. But now look, we are not there. Look what Kaicho has come to. For the past 5 years, for the past 4 years, there has been no newspaper like Kaicho. Every issue is about oil. We took that paper and made it numero uno in Guyana. Outstrip the more resource-filled Starbuck News. And look what it has become now. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so there's several ways. I've listened to what you've said. There's several ways you can look at it. Every great businessman across the world, they have their own strange little ways. You could look at Mark Zuckerberg, you could look at Elon Musk and see the kind of characters that they are. They're strange characters. Many of them didn't probably even finish school, or they dropped out of college and they started a business. It takes a special kind of individual to do that. I've seen criticisms of Glenn that he come out of big market and he sell Bora and pepper and he did so many other things. Without him being there and the kind of person it is, that newspaper would not have reached the level as where it is. And you're right when you says that a couple of individuals might have been, they were present and they played a tremendous role in making it what it is. Look, I think what fell through, and I agree with you, sometimes you had to bite it in because you have a family to look after. But I had to balance it with the fact that I really enjoyed my job too. But I think the straw that broke the camel back was the fact that I had a total disagreement on one part with the direction of the newspaper. I believe that I'm old school, and I believe that the newspaper should be presenting the news and let the people draw the conclusion. Not every day, not everything is oil and gas, but he owns a newspaper, he believes that. But the fact is, how do you align that with the thing that Freddie Kissoon, Dale Andrews, Adam Harris, Gildarie, and whoever it is helped build the newspaper, Michael Jordan? How do you say to them that a newspaper which is so powerful, that had so much readership? I remember one year during election time, we had on a daily basis 300 and something thousand people logging on to read it online. And how do you say that has fallen? You look at the front page and where it's fallen. The reason why it's fallen is not because people hate Kaicho News, but the playing field now has shifted towards social media and among other things. But people are also saying, oil and gas is not the only thing I want to read. I want to read a diversity in topics, in writers, and I want to see different things. I want to see a little crime. I might only want to read crime. I might only want to read Freddie Kissoon. And how do you present that? Some bad decisions, I think, were made. I might not have liked Freddie Kissoon and the way he spoke with me, but is Freddie Kissoon good for the newspaper, for Culture News? I think some of the decisions that were made would have basically sent Culture News down the path that it is going now. I'm going to be very frank about that. I totally disagreed with that. However, you could have used the newspaper in another way. You could have said what you had to say, but still maintain what the news has done. There's another factor that would contribute to where Culture News is. And not only Culture News, you could look at Sabbath News too. Social media has been used by a lot of journalists who would have exited out of the mainstream, out of newspaper and radio, and opened their own little thing, and they put in the news out there. If you have a smartphone and you pick it up and see the news, then why do you need to buy a newspaper? So that would have led also and contributed to the fall in the numbers, because at the end of the day, the numbers are what is important. You would have spoken in the past that the majority of the money that's made from newspaper is coming from the ads, and it so happens that although Culture News criticizes and Sabbath News criticizes, they're still getting significant, which shows you that the government is not moving in the direction to pull out ads. And I don't think the people of Guyana is going to allow the government of the day, whoever government is in there, to do those kind of things. That is vindictiveness. But at the end of the day, the question that you put...
But there's another, let me cut you there. When the Sabbath News, we're going to open the lines to call in. The numbers are on the screen, and you can call in and talk about anything under the sun or anything under the moon. But I found out, I got some statistics, Leonard, that is staggering about the amount of money the Sabbath News gets from advertisement from the government. One Sunday, they had 28 full page. They had 28 when the ads were spread across the newspapers. But if you cut out the ads and paste it on a sheet of newspaper, it would have been 28 sheets of ads from the government. When the Sabbath News was formed, and it's in the book on the history of the Sabbath News, Mr. DeKary said the paper was to aid and abet in the resuscitation of business. But surely a media house should not depend on government's ads and the money that come from that to keep it going. And that, I don't know about Culture. I think Glenlal is very rich, and maybe he subsidizes the Culture News, because the Culture News circulation has gone down terribly. No newspaper in the world has every day a story on a particular industry. But I know Sabbath News actually stays in existence because of the ads it gets. You're talking about over $25 million a month in ads. But one of the things we should do is that we should reverse the role, and you could interview me on journalism, because I've been around a long time.
I could do that.
But
so you're asked, I think the question on the table, if I'm reading you correctly, is that why is government given?
No, I don't think they should. I don't think they should withdraw it.
Right.
That is going to get the government in trouble.
Well, here is the other factor of it. The majority of the revenues, especially for the newspaper, to my knowledge, comes from advertisement. Very small portion, I think, is maybe 20-25% of its revenues would come from sales of the actual newspaper in itself. And even if you don't sell the newspaper and all, you're going to make money from the ads. The more you print is the more expensive you get on the overhead with the printing. But I'm not sure how the government is going to deal with that. What I would want to say, if the government really wants to spread its advertising dollar, they need to see which forum, whether it's social media, whether it's radio, whether it's television. But
that's the point I want to come to. If you look at the ads Guyanese Critic Facebook page gets, if you look at the ads Newsroom get, what has happened now is we're living in a different world with a different kind of newspaper world and a different kind of business world. The Guyanese Critic Facebook page and the newsroom combined 600,000 viewers. Now, if you are an insurance company, a commercial bank, a biscuit producer, a fast food, it is better to put your ads there. Now, if you look carefully at the Starbuck News and the Kaicho News, the amount of ads from the private sector have significantly decreased. Now, you can't blame the private sector. You know the thousands of people that go on Facebook, at Guyanese Critic, go on Newsroom. So what has happened, strangely and ironically, is that the government ads itself is keeping the two newspapers alive. One on the achievement of 3 years of his presidency, there was a 20-page supplement of color that was given to the newspapers. That 20-page supplement alone, I would think, cost more than $10 million to the government. So where we go with that, I don't know. And I would not sit down and say government should withdraw their ads. But I just find it strange that the two newspapers that are poisonously, shamelessly, unapologetically anti-government is kept in existence by hundreds of millions of dollars annually from the state. But let's open the lines. The numbers are 231-2982 and Gildarie's WhatsApp number 637-1071. Talk about anything you want to. These Friday programs are for you. Except we would expect you to be, as we've always said the past 14 months, please be courteous and please avoid Gildarie and I and the station TBN ending up in the court. Because if you say a person stole from a bank and that is not true, you can prove that, we will end up in libel. So the phone lines are open up now. Please tell us what's on your mind wherever you are. Talk to us as you've been doing the past 14 months.
All right, we do happen to have a call. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening, sir. Freddie and Leonard. Listen, first of all, I have to tell you that I'm moved to tears to listen to your career as a journalist. And I've listened to Freddie in an interview today on the Chronicle. I can't remember the guy's name. Freddie, oh my God, I can tell you, buddy, I didn't realize that you passed through all of that. My God.
Oh, you're talking about the Chronicle interview with me by Akash Prasad. Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh my God.
I know. Yeah, you can get it on YouTube.
I listened to that. I actually replay it with a friend of mine sitting in my garage. And oh my God, it's, again, I've moved to tears and I'm moving to more tears listening to Leonard. Leonard, what can I say? Buddy, you have struggled. You have come out on top, though. You have come out on top. And Freddie also. Guys, please keep up the good work. Love you guys, man.
Before you go.
Yes.
Gildarie said on the program when we interviewed Swami Aksharanandan that Swami was talking about how he gives back.
Which I looked at Wednesday night, yes.
How he gives back to the society. And Gildarie said that in his business, they have a policy of giving back to the society. So I hope I get back something, since I'm part of the society, from Gildarie's business.
I promise, Freddie. I promise when I come to Guyana, I'll be doing that.
I don't know what nepotism means, but I'm
it's not nepotism. You said your company's giving back to the
family
society.
friend, so he can't be dipping his hands in the cookie jar. But thank you very much for coming.
I promise. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good evening, caller. Hello? Think we missed that one. That one doesn't have internet. So if you're calling in, it's 231-2982 or 637-1071. Freddie, while the calls are coming through, let me address. Okay, there's a call coming through. Okay. Good evening, caller. Hello.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I wanna ask you one question. When you wrote for Kaichor News, before the PPP lost the last year, not the last, the 2016, did you ever written anything against the government that was not true?
To my knowledge, no. Everything that we would have done, I would have done some investigation based on the facts were laid out. Glenda could not have done anything that we would have printed something maybe on a crime and then we would have had to make a correction. All that comes along with the scale. But I think what your question is, if I deliberately skewed the news or misrepresented the fact, no, sir.
What about the corruption that he was preaching?
I do believe at that point in time when I was at Kaichor News, based on what was presented to us, and I believe I can't speak on behalf of any other reporter. I think based on what was presented to us, some questions were asked about transactions, and we reported it based on what we found.
Stay on the line, sir. Are you on the line?
Yes. Yes, I'm on the line.
You finished with Gildarie?
Yeah. Not really.
Okay, let me intercept here because I like the direction of your question.
That's a good question.
I like the let me say, speaking for myself, that have written for the Kaichor News for the past 30 years. When I look back at my years at the Kaichor News, I think I was naive. There is no greater virtue in a human than bearing your soul to your country, to the world. And looking back at my 30 years at Kaichor News, I would say I was naive. You get caught in the vortex of fighting for justice, and some things you just don't sit down and put a fine-teeth comb to these things. And speaking for myself, I can't speak for Gildarie. Speaking for myself, I think I got carried away by many of the conspiracies in Glenlad's mind. And
that is what I'm trying to
I could only say to you and to the people of this country that I apologize for some of my stupidity and some of my mistakes. I can't speak for nobody else. I think there's some things I believe, and I just emotionally you cling to them. But looking back now, I think those were part of Glenlad's conspiracy. It's not too late to say sorry. Okay.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for coming through, caller. Bye-bye. So 637-1071, or you could also call us on 231. There's a call coming through. Good evening, caller.
Hey, good evening, Gildarie, Freddie.
Hi, good evening.
You guys are always doing a great job. Continue. My issue is tonight, right? We had a protest in front of the Freedom House in Region 6 since Wednesday, right? Sugar workers protesting for severance or whatever it is. My main concern is here, they said, a few of them said, the government has no time with them, right? But I can testify, when PPP was in opposition, in Kanji, where most of the sugar workers reside, I used to work at Freedom House during that period. Whenever Freedom House received hampers, that was the first area we used to go into and share. When we bring down, when we had the flood relief, when we bring down the hampers, the cleaning hampers and the goods hampers, Kanji were the first place we go. Even to the 2nd of August in 2020, when Irfan Ali sworn in our excellency, We were in Kanji sharing out rice when we got the message that Our Excellency was about to swear in. So for these sugar workers to come and say that the government has no time with them, I would say they're ungrateful. This government pay more attention to the sugar work. We pumped over $15 billion in Rosal Estate as presently as we speak. You understand? Right in, I think if I'm not mistaken, September or October, Rosal Estate is about to produce sugar. Kanji has been alive again from 2015 to 28. So until today, Rosal Kanji is not that bright how it's going to be. So when that chimney started to throw smoke, you come in New Amsterdam Christmas Eve night and during the Christmas period and see what that estate does for the Region 6 people. Thank you, sir. You guys have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming through. A good night to the Mauritians.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, good night, caller.
Yes, good night. Gentlemen.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Gildarie, I want to raise a topic about the traffic police, right?
Sure.
Now, on many occasions, you would get stopped by the traffic police, and let's say it's a minor thing as a traffic gator not working, or a horn not working, some little minor thing. It's a ticketable offense. You know the policeman will tell you, he don't have a ticket book on him. He got to take you to the station.
No, you shouldn't go. You shouldn't go.
No, well, that's what I'm saying, you know, right? So now, he would take you to the station. You know what he do when he carry you to the station? He left you there and got back on the road with the motorcycle.
No.
He's leaving you there now. Now you got to go and beg one of his colleagues to see what he could do for you. Now, what I think that people should advocate for, and maybe the Attorney General need to look into this, is that if a policeman stop you on the road for ticketable offense, minor offense, and he doesn't have his ticket book on you,
that's it.
He has to let you go.
No, he has to.
These people they take you. Look, let me give you a little instance. I just turned at Brad Street last week. Soon as I turned from Brad Street, coming out to Brad Street onto Safran Street, I know it's 30 feet. I know way beyond 30 feet from the car now. Three policemen were there. You know the man thinks I stopped at the car now. Now let me assume that he think that I parked too close to the car now. The policeman wait until I switch off my vehicle, then come to me and tell me I must go to the station. I said, for what? He said, park bad. I cleared 30 feet from the store.
That's another ticketable offense.
He walking with 30 feet. He walking with the lantern post.
That's another. No, but he cannot. A policeman cannot tell you that your tint is illegal. A policeman cannot tell you you're exceeding the speed limit. And a policeman cannot tell you you're not observing the 30 feet requirement. If they don't have an instrument, if the police doesn't have an instrument to measure your tint, he cannot with his naked eyes tell you the tint is in violation. Even though the tint may be dark, the law requires him to act.
Would you like me to invite you a morning when they have the tint campaign, and you go there and you see if they got any?
Let
me tell you something.
They have.
The police force in Guyana. Look, I know you may not agree with me, right, on this, but let me tell you, the government is complicit in this because you know why? They know what people go through on a daily basis, but they don't.
No, sir.
They have their sirens.
No, sir.
Let me finish.
No.
Let me tell you something. If you go by Longfield police station now, go in the morning and you will see all the vehicles in the class street, dark as night. You know those vehicles? Those are traffic police vehicles.
So I am telling you. So listen.
You believe?
Stay on the line. There is no government. And I'm telling you this, I have no interest in politics. But if tomorrow I become president, there is no president that is capable of eradicating the egregiousness that you find in the police force. These people do things that are so wrong that you cannot blame. Look, the government, the Ministry of Home Affairs, it's clear that standard operating procedure is that you stop a car when you observe an indiscretion has occurred. I was with my wife on West Coast 3 Sundays ago. Because of my wife, I don't want to make a story, make a fuss, but I did it 3 weeks ago. The guy stopped the car. When he saw me, he said, proceed. I don't like that because he saw it's Freddie Kissoon. But I said to him, why did you stop the car? Even though you say proceed. And I said to him, you have to give me an explanation. There is no such thing as random stopping. And they just is so he just didn't have a reaction. And I was with my wife, I drove away. Listen, you cannot blame the government for what policemen do. They're going to do it with any government. It's a culture.
I have a right to blame them. This is social media days. You were just saying it. I called in on this program about 3 times. And I talk about the container haulers that park out by National Highway with no reflectors in the night.
Yeah, I remember that.
No, hold on. Even Gildarie promised that he would look at it and mention it. Anyway, he have his own thing to look after. But what I'm saying, I want to ask you, you believe Minister Indar never passed there? You try to tell me that he never passed there? You try to tell me Edgel never passed there? You try to tell me Robeson never passed there? So, I can't agree with you. That at the end of the day, the government run this country. Not me and Freddie.
Well, I agree the buck stopped with them.
Let me tell you this thing.
But
this is social media.
You can't blame the government for everything these policemen.
Every single thing does be on social media, right? You know something? You say something bad about any public official that they don't like. Immediately they got people watching on the page, and you might get a phone call for some cyberbullying or something. So why is it that when you make this kind of criticism, you don't hear the paying attention to it? Because you know why? They know. You honestly believe that the government doesn't know that these policemen stopping people every day and harassing?
I think they know. I think.
So why you can't bring the traffic chief talk?
Well,
the traffic chief talk, man, on a program that private vehicle mustn't have police lights and police siren. Stand up on the East Bank in the morning and you check on a private vehicle that is.
All right, so 2 things I would say to you today. It so happened that you raised this issue today. I called former Judge William Ramlal, who is the head of the Police Complaints Authority now. And I wanted to invite him because I read somewhere that he's going across the country speaking to policemen. They're trying to let policemen know what exactly is the standard operating procedures and what they should and should not do. And I wanted to invite him on the program. He said he was a little busy in a meeting. He's going to call me back. He did not call me back. I'm going to invite him here because he needs to make it clear. I think a former commissioner of police made it very clear what traffic ranks, and because I think this is one of the biggest.
Several former commissioner of police.
What they should be doing or not.
Some of the protocols, right, for the police. I mean, the man for the police complaint authority, he can only come and say some of the issues that is bothering people and the allegations that he has.
No, but you see, if you're educated, if the man
who... I'm looking at me is that...
Okay, look.
The police force, they enforce these things. The Minister of Home Affairs, the Attorney General would get his bill passed and approved in Parliament, like he recently did to recognize the...
All right, look.
So, you're supposed to see being followed.
All right.
Not a policeman stopping somebody on the road.
All right, before...
all right, we need to take it.
Okay, some other calls come in, but when you come off, I will say on this program, if you are driving and the police just stop you at random, do not comply. He has to tell you why he stopped the vehicle. Either you were zigzagging, either you nearly knocked down someone. A police cannot stretch out his hand to an incoming vehicle and stop it without telling them, the driver, why he's stopping it. The police has extraordinary powers in any part of the world. They can stop any truck, any motorcycle, but there's a catch. They have to tell the person why they're stopping them. And I will repeat on this program. Thanks for coming through, sir. We got other callers coming in. Right. I will repeat. Do not comply with a random stop.
We'll have to get Justice Ramlal, former Justice William Ramlal. Good evening, caller.
Listen, guys, I have to call back because when I listened to this last caller ranting and raving, I couldn't help but call back.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. All right. Because I have to reiterate what Freddie says. If you didn't break the law, nobody can demand anything and force you to go anywhere. Leonard, I can tell you something. Many years ago, it was Ronnie Sarwan being the captain on the 19 team, playing at Everest, and I happened to be one of the fortunate guys having a car at the time, whatever. So I backed into the Everest cricket ground, into the bridge, which is a wooden bridge, and the policeman trying to be a bully, and he was like, "Bring your license, bring your fitness." And I was like, "I am not giving you anything. I am giving my friends a drop, right? And you are not taking anything from me." And he was like, "Go to drive to Brickdam," and I was like, I used the expletives, as Freddie would have warned me about how to use the word. I was like, "I am not giving you anything. You do what you want. I am not giving you my license or my fitness."
All right.
And I subsequently went home to where I live on the East Coast. I refused to give it, and there's nothing he could have done to me. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm pleading with Guyanese. If you're contributing to bribing the policeman, you'll be screwed all the times. Do not contribute to bribing policemen.
Thank you very much for that, caller. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, caller. Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Yes, madam.
I would just like to say something and leave it, and you have it up for discussion. I would like to talk about migrants when persons coming to Guyana, they come back to stay, and they're being given duty-free to bring in things. I think it has a limit. Now, I am living in Guyana for many years, over 60 years. I stayed, I worked, I contributed towards the country in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
And so, now, if I decide to go overseas on a holiday, and luckily I am given a vehicle or something by a relative, if I bring back that whatever it is, I have to pay duties on these things. Now, these Guyanese leave Guyana, go overseas. They work a lot of money, and now they choose to come back and they want duty-free. I do not think it is fair to the citizens. If we go outside, then allow us to bring back things. If we want to bring things, we are bringing things to better ourselves. Now these people come back, some of them to sell out their stuff, and they do not live here. They go back after a couple mornings. It is totally unfair to Guyanese people who have stayed here and fight the battle.
Okay, madam.
Very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. You've hit the nail on the head there. And if I could go a little farther, just stay right there, as Freddie would say. If you know how much of a racket is being run in that thing there, if you know how many Freddie Kissoon auto dealers are involved with scams and these things that has happened, man, it's so many things. But people have a right to say that they're not being given a fair chance like pre-migrants. Go ahead, caller. Good evening.
Gildarie, just one thing I want to fight out. These 10-day workers, right? That I think it's across the country. I'm not sure in how many.
These what workers?
7 days?
No, the 10 days worker that the job that the president created, so at this point.
And they pay them $40,000 a month or something? Yes, go ahead.
I work higher Guyana, so I interact with a lot of people, right? In various areas, they have chosen people. This is not the government. Remember, they have the arms in the region, right? They have chosen people and put people in these 10-day workers who have jobs. I was talking to a woman today in travel with me. The woman was, I think, from Alnis Village. And I did some following up on it also. So I have the facts like I can tell you about it. One individual from Arlen, after she told me, I went and I look around and I find out a few things. One of the individuals from Arlen's village is working as a 10-day worker at the Arlen's NDC. Has a car wash in Salton, that's the next village from Arlen. His name is just booked there. He received his salary. His aunt is an overseer there. That's the reason for him. I did another follow-up on whim and so forth. My point is, they have a lot of people that actually need this job. You know? You have a lot of single parents. I know a few people they need to really look at. Less people who actually need.
All right, I hear what you're saying there. I've received complaints about regional folks who are probably using their powers to employ relatives on anything. And if it is that you're saying to us that the people have a job and they're also receiving money from the government, which they shouldn't have, if you know of anybody like that, please send it to me and Freddie Kissoon. You got the same number here, and Freddie Kissoon is 614-5927. Send it to us, and we're gonna.
I have you on WhatsApp.
Please send those.
Okay.
We're gonna send it to
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. And if y'all know anybody, send it to us too.
Let's take this call.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Yes, you're on to the Gildarie Freddie show. Just lower your volume and let's go.
Yeah, I just called to find out what's going on with Lowenfield and Mingo. If you could shed some light on the program on them for me, please.
Okay, sure. Even the Attorney General made a public statement that he don't know what is happening with the trial. I don't think anybody in Guyana can answer that question because he's the Attorney General. And I think I read 2 weeks ago where he said he don't know why the trials haven't started as yet. And if he cannot answer that, then who can? I know he's expressed some frustration about it. The evidence that came out of the judicial inquiry is quite disturbing. But that's all we can say, sir. I don't think Gildarie and I know.
I think the matter is still before the courts. I think the concern is why is it moving so quickly.
Yeah. The attorney. Thanks.
It's been an interesting night, Freddie Kissoon. Listen to the people. You know, we have some great people tuning in to us every single night, and they're very much invested.
Stop praising yourself.
no, tuning in. I didn't say me tuning in. You didn't bring
I think
any.
you have a call on your
on my phone. All right. What happened? You know what happened tonight? People are watching cricket at CPL. You watch?
Well, we no. This program goes. Do you know last year when they had the final, we had a show.
Yes, I know. We had some numbers.
Even if there's just 4 or 5 people looking, we have to cater for them. One of the things I learned very early in my political endeavors is that democracy is not only for the majority. Democracy is also for the minority. A state has to cater for even 5 people if they're living at a place and they have no access to the main road. The state has to build something for them.
All right. Good evening, caller.
Morning, sir.
Morning. Good evening. What are you drinking, man? Come, let me go again. All right, tell me.
Good evening to both of you. I was the person who called a couple of weeks ago concerning that I only received one politician for one of my daughter.
Oh, yes.
Yesterday I was sharing a book at the iPod Community Center, right? When I went there now, I was told by one of the agents that they omitted your name. So I asked her why. Who do it? I was told that they get some information that the girl passed away, and so then they omitted her name. Now the girl is right here. I think that something really fishy is going on.
Did they put her on the list? Did they put her on the list subsequently?
The man tell me that he don't worry carry on. So I tell me forgiving it. Somebody called for find
No, I'm asking you a question. After that happened, did they correct that issue? Is the girl still on the list, or did they put you on? Did they put her on?
Answer no the girl. They put the girl on the list. Answer no, yes.
Give me back this number again. I'm gonna wait. Don't come up the line. Don't come up the line. I got again with the minister, Minister Vindhya Prasad. Vindhya, okay.
So nothing from the time you called us a few weeks ago. Nothing has changed.
Nothing was changed. Nobody called me.
It's a
Whenever me call me, nobody answer phone.
It's unfortunate you live far in Iflock and not in Georgetown where we are. Because we could have taken that matter up as a matter of urgency. I mean, why they anyway.
I think that something is going on somewhere.
All right. I just sent it to the minister. I told her I'm going to speak. I will speak to her tomorrow. I'm going to raise this matter again, and let's see where it goes.
All right. Thanks for coming through. Keep calling us. Keep calling.
If they're not here, I need to send this thing, send it to them.
All right. We'll try to do our best. Right. Take my cell number 614-5927. Okay. Yeah. I will try my best to look at into it. Right. Thanks for coming through. But that man called about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Why they not putting if the girl is alive and well and right there, why she's not on the list? And nobody can do anything about that. You know, Gildarie, this is the third time this man called. Let's put aside some time and let's deal with this matter in the ministry.
I just sent it to the minister and followed it up with her tomorrow.
I am.
Call me tomorrow, let me call her. Like, I'm just tired. I'm tired.
But why
You know, the question that's been asked of us, to a lot of people call me from overseas with NIS and things like that. And unfortunately, I wish I could do more. We don't control NIS. We could only raise the matter here and maybe make some calls and things like that. But it is frustrating, and I hope that the president may come through his promise that he's going to create a call center which takes all the complaint. I hope he does it. Good day, caller.
Hello?
Yes, good day. Good night.
How are you, sir?
Go ahead.
I'm calling that same that part-time job where the government created. A lot of these part-time job is not paying NIS, and NIS going around to private businesses and forcing them to pay NIS.
With me forcing them, if you have a private business, aren't you supposed to pay NIS?
Yes, but
no. Even if the others, those people talking about aren't paying, the private people, the NIS is doing its business. It's going around asking private people to pay NIS.
But that $40,000 that you're getting as a part-time employee, is that, do you have to pay NIS on that? I'm not sure. There's a question.
I mean, you're supposed to, regardless if it's 40, 10,000, 20,000.
No, I don't think so. I think
it's a grant. It's not a salary. It's not a salary.
You don't pay NIS on that. No.
But it's a good question, and I'd have to get some more details on that.
No, I can't see that. I can't see if you get a one-off payment or you could pay.
Is it considered a grant, or is it it can be a salary if government?
No, but NIS contribution is so integrated people in a system of employment.
It's like the cash handout to the students. I think that's what they're doing, but you have to prove that you do some work. But you're right, technically.
But then the government is not saying it's a grant, it's saying it's a job.
It's a good question. We will have to ask, because legally, I don't know the answer to them, my brother, to be honest.
I have businesses there, and I have workers who work in the same shift workers. And I'm paying NIS for her, but on the government side, it's not paying NIS for her.
Yes,
I think it depends on the nature of the employment. You know, if the government employ some
No.
laborers.
What he's talking about, the government has created a set of jobs and says that we're going to pay you $40,000. It happened a lot across the country. And he's saying that some of them are also working in other business, maybe in his business too. And they're not paying for the other part, but he has to pay for them for what he's paying them. So,
right, like what the gentleman was saying earlier. They have work. They're working.
Is that
if
what?
they're working,
Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
But the government side, they're not paying an IS. It's unfair to get to the Guyanese people.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to try to get some clarity on it. Call me on Monday, and let me see whether I could make some calls.
Thank you very much.
Good, bye-bye.
Good evening.
Hi, President. Good night. Good evening. Is it the Gildarie show?
Yes, it is.
It's Freddie too.
Okay, good night, Mr. Freddie. Here, something I want to bring to the public attention. 2 days ago, I visited Gildarie, the CID headquarters where the family goes to take all the police clearance, right?
Yeah.
I was just saying after the officer there push out chair and said, no, the place closed, come back morning 8 o'clock. I don't know if I now know like every...
What time it was that you...
10 after 2, to be direct, 10 after 2.
Well, I don't know if they close at 2 o'clock. Banks close at 2 o'clock. Commercial banks close at 2 o'clock.
What I'm saying is that there is a government.
It's a difficult thing because they have to cut off and have to issue. I think that one set of people, I don't know what's the system there, but I know that you go apply for the police clearance in the morning and go probably pick it up in the afternoon. What you're saying that you went after 2 o'clock there, maybe that's why. But
they must have. You
have to have a cut off.
Each government agency have their own regulations. I mean, if the regulation is 10 to 2, you can't ask them to go beyond 2. We Guyanese complain, but if the Americans say you got to be there with 2 for a visa, we will find ourselves there with 2.
Yeah, it's not something that the complain really about. It's something that I really want to raise, and if anybody gets any idea about it, they could spread the word,
Okay, sir. Thanks for coming through. Bye-bye. Okay.
No, it's good. I think you want the place to, so we must be able to flex too, especially when it's a service to the people.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, guys, I just want to correct you on that part that you have on the NIS, right? It's not a one-half grant. It's a salary that you get every month, which there's supposed to pay an NIS, but I don't think that's in place. It's like when the VC, when he was president and he created that neighborhood police thing, when they started off at $30,000 per month take home. The government used to facilitate the tax and the NIS, and I think that is what's happening now until it becomes like official. So it is not a grant, it is a salary that they receive every month.
But let me ask you a question. So there's a couple of things that government does to give incentives to people, and that doesn't leave the burden. If you're giving a man $40,000 as a way of mitigating the circumstances, living circumstances, you believe that the government is doing its job by asking them to pay the NIS as well? The government could also turn to NIS and say, look, we're going to cushion you via a subsidy or something, some of the monies that they're supposed to.
That is what is happening now, Gildarie.
But is it wrong what the government is doing there? If you give a man $40,000, you can't ask him to think that, because what you're really doing is what you're saying. You're contradicting yourself as a government there by taking out money on one hand to pay another company that belongs to them, or another entity that belongs to or is part of the state. So I think the question is whether government is subsidizing NIS by taking some money that give it to them to subsidize to offset what they would have had to take out in a normal situation. We'd have to get some clarity on it, though. I think you've raised a good point.
Second thing, I have a proposal for you and Freddie. With all these concerns that you guys are getting from the public, I think you guys need to put together a team. And if you guys put together a team and ask for like what Nikhil Roderick used to do, like donation, you guys put together a team, get a vehicle, and ask them. You guys don't have to come and put together your team. pay them. I'm sure you can receive donations to pay them.
I remember seeing Charmo.
No.
I got on my road, buddy.
I have time for that in Gildarie busy now.
Yeah. Well, I hear what you say. Thank you
not
very
at
much.
my age. Thanks for the thing, but not at my age.
I appreciate it that you think. But look, those are things I think the government of the day or NGOs and so could take those responsibilities. But I think of a bad name, not Gildarie, by. Oh. Let me do my little show now, man. Thanks. Thanks, bye. I remember that thing there. It's just difficult. Freddie, I think the government or somebody got to have a one-stop shop in which the people has to make the complaint. Good evening, Carlo.
Yes, good evening, Gildarie, Freddie. Grateful to be here. A question for you guys. I want to know, how come we don't have a passport office at Freedom Hoop? Such a major intersection of the West Coast and West Bank. But we could have one in Lethem.
Is the one in Lethem working?
Of course it is.
It is.
Yes. And I see people traveling all the way from the West Coast and West Bank, and they got to go to Georgetown to get that. The other thing, too, I meant to ask, do you think, I want to hear your opinion, do you think the country is, like I said, the Guyana is the Dubai of Latin America with the speed of development? But if the nation is not developed, how could you say that's a developing nation? Like, I'm confused with that language. Because look how slow things are moving. I mean, yeah, you get in a road, you get high-rise building. But look, I mean, I left Guyana 45 years. And if you ask me what has changed, not a lot has changed with all this Dubai talk.
Well, let me ask a question. I hear what you're saying there, very fair questions. I get this all the time. And I want to ask you, what is a good time that we only discovered oil in 2015, 2014, thereabouts? We're in 2023 now, 8 years later.
Yes.
Within 2019, 2020, 2021, pandemic hit. Is the country making progress? Is it developing? I'm seeing changes every day before my eyes. I think the question that you may want to ask is what I would want to ask as a citizen. Are the droplets or is are the monies that's coming from oil and gas coming to the people of Guyana? Are they getting a fair share? And that's one of the questions I raised the other night. If you have a budget and you have a budget of $100, where do you spend it? Do you go buy a fancy car? Do you put some aside for your children's education? Do you put some aside for your mortgage? Do you put some aside for your food? Where do you spend it? And that's what the government is faced with. You have all this money that is coming in. Where do you put it? Do you put it in infrastructure? Do you pay a salary to the people that causes immediate inflation? I'm not saying they shouldn't get a good salary, but how fast could you do it? The economists are going to tell you better be careful how you do that. So how do you give that? Do you give it in part handout? I need the Minister of Finance, Ashley Singh, or even Barjagdi to come here, because they're going to tell you the dangers of when you give people money. The minute that you start paying a salary right away, the shop people raise it. Inflation in the skin. But thank you very much for that.
Mr. Gildarie, before you go, I mean, you look at it around the world. The first time anywhere there's a crisis, the first people to get on board to help out in a crisis is the U.S. And what they do? Food. How can't we adapt that? I mean, if a nation can't feed itself, or the nation is struggling to eat, how could you say that there's development? Shouldn't that be a number one priority?
But I don't understand.
I don't understand. Have you had a look at Trinidad and Venezuela and what's happened across the thing and where Guyana is at? You need to come here and you need to walk the streets.
You said you've been away for 5 years. When last you visited?
2 years ago.
No, you need to come here, man. I think somebody is feeling, or you're reading some news of this thing. I totally disagree with you. I'm gonna tell you, if you tell me that people are not taking advantage of some of the opportunities and they're sitting on their hands, I would say yes. But I'm also telling you that Guyana has made some tremendous strides, and right now we have a shortage of workers, despite what people are saying. It means that people are employed, or people are just migrating, but whatever it is, people are employed. People are going to work, people are spending. You go to the malls, you go to the movie theaters, and you mean to tell me they're not making money?
The operator told me we have 5 minutes more, so let's see if we can get in as much.
Thank you very much, caller.
All right, thank you
very much. Bye-bye.
No problem.
Is this time working with overtime?
Very quickly.
Hello?
Hey, good night.
Yeah, we have the operator say 5 minutes more. Let's see if we can get in as much call as possible. So please be brief and to the point.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to say, that most of us are really disappointed that those guys like Kit Lowenfield and Mingo, they're still out there, still going about their normal business.
Okay.
What they would have done or wanted to do was to run this entire country.
Yeah, we don't know if they're guilty or not.
And going into the next election with those guys just out there, lingering around there, doing their normal thing, it's really impossible.
They're not going to be part of the GCOM Secretariat. Anyway, thanks for coming through. Thanks to the point.
Somebody's asking here, if a police officer can take him out of vehicle fitness and tell you to collect in 3-4 days after at the station, and then give me a paper to continue working.
Why? No, the question is no. The police cannot take your fitness until you come back 4 days after. The answer to that question is no.
No, they take it until you come back in 3-4 days, but then they give you a paper. Is it that you applied to renew your fitness and they give you some kind of receipt? And then it takes 4 days. Maybe the bureaucracy as well.
Oh, that's a different. But
I gotta see.
No, it doesn't take that long.
I think in closing,
it doesn't take 4 days.
What time you have? I have about 3 minutes more.
Yeah, we have about 3 minutes more. So let's
Freddie
see if we
Kissoon, in the meantime, while the
calls.
calls are coming in, I think you and I gotta go to by the passport office. We eat some burger or something. Why is it?
Is it still a mess there?
Yes, every single day. I don't know what is happening. People are talking. That
when this program first started, we heard
people
about
going
that.
there at 5:30 in the morning, and then they're saying that they're sitting there, and people walking through. There were 3-4 of them, and they're getting through. Somebody they get the contacts in there. Somebody need to look into it, Mr. Commissioner of Police. That sounds like CN Chairman there. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, hi, good night. It's me again. I think what the gentleman was talking about the passport office, the problem, the government need to improve more government services, means like in Escabo, for example.
Agree.
I'm from Escabo.
All right.
From Escabo, you don't have a GA office over there. You don't have an EPA office where you can make payments and things. You have to come all the way to Georgetown to do that. And it costs you more than what the license costs.
You can't pay it into a bank?
No. The
Are you serious?
System, yeah. I'm telling you, for 2 years, at least a year, they said this MMG, especially GA, said MMG, not GA, sorry, EPA, said they can integrate MMG into the system for make payment. That doesn't happen yet. Once a month, they come down to Essequibo.
I hope as we get more income from oil, and that is assured, I hope we put these things in places, Gildarie.
But there's a lot of things. Like, for example, I have an issue with GRA present now. I applied for my liquor license since March. Can't receive it until
everybody in Guyana got a problem with GRA.
document has to go up to Georgetown. When that document has to go up to Georgetown, it delays everything. The other thing too now, when you renew a license in Guyana, you have to wait till the budget pass before you apply for your fire certificate. It doesn't make sense.
I just dread my car license, my driver's license is nearing expiration.
I just hope I call the police on you.
I just hope, but it's still valid. I just dread I have to go into GRA. Anyway, thanks for calling.
No, we gotta
go now.
Okay.
No, we gotta go now. Thanks.
Sorry about that. We're out of time. Yes, Freddie.
Well, is there any?
No, we're out of time. Yeah.
What time we have? Oh yeah, time is caught up of us. Sorry, viewers. I don't think we can take any more calls. our operators have to leave at 10. We don't want to be accused of being labor exploiters. So thanks for being with us. I don't think I have anything to say that I haven't said on these programs the past 14 months. I would hope as we modernize, as we get more income from oil, these things would fall into place. The thing that the passport, the waiting at GRA, of course, Gildarie will benefit from that, not me at my age.
Why you not don't want to benefit?
But I'm too old to benefit. When those change come, I don't know how old I'm going to be.
Benefit from
but I would hope those things will come soon.
I must tell you,
anyway,
I am very happy that next week, in just 1 year, my business, and we're taking part in the Housing Expo next week. I'm inviting you and the folks out there to visit us and see Pixels in action next week. I have some
Pixels
amazing...
or Pigtail? Let's call your company Pigtail. Okay. I don't know why.
You might anyway, do that.
Anyway, that's my part in words. We gotta go.
Next week. Good night, folks. Thank you.
Catch you later.